God is love. This single phrase is the most heavily used and heavily assumed concept in modern religion. It is almost universally invoked to validate any display of human affection, compassion, or loyalty. Secular humanism and moralistic therapeutic deism interpret this as a mandate for generic ethical living. In these frameworks, the phrase functions as a synonym for societal niceness. This typographic overlap illustrates a common theological assumption that the Greek word agape carries a permanent, intrinsic meaning of divine love, regardless of its surroundings. The Apostle John, however, applies a much more rigid set of parameters. In the Johannine corpus, the context of the text dictates the meaning of the word, and those boundaries are strictly Christological. Conflating natural human affection with the specific saving love John describes distorts the entire foundation of his theology. In 1 John chapter 4, John provides the formal definition of his terms. He bypasses human emotion and social goodness entirely. He grounds the definition of love exclusively in a singular divine action. The structure of the Greek text in verse 10 is definitive. John connects the phrase, "this is love," directly to the word hilasmon, the atoning sacrifice. For John, the cross is the only valid metric for love. By tethering love to the sending of the Son, John moves the concept out of the realm of abstract emotion and into a verifiable historical event. The Father's action at the cross becomes the physical proof required to use the word agape. In the Johannine system, love is structurally inseparable from substitutionary atonement. While the cross is the historical anchor, the engine of this love is an internal, mechanical transformation within the believer. John links agape to the concept of gegenetai ek tou theou, the state of having been born of God. This requirement of regeneration is a literal divine fathering. It implants a spiritual life force originating in God's character, creating capacities for love entirely outside natural human effort. This shared nature is what allows for ginosko, the relational knowledge of God. Just as a child recognizes a parent through the intimacy of shared life, rather than a list of facts, the regenerate person knows God because they have been fathered by him. Consequently, the love John describes is an evidence of this new birth. It is a biological impossibility to possess this root of love while remaining in one's natural state. John further constrains this love by placing it behind a strict intellectual and confessional boundary. Here, the line from agape extends to homologo, or confession, the definitive gatekeeper to abiding in God. Verse 15 functions as a logical conditional. God's abiding is entirely dependent on the acknowledgement of his testimony concerning his Son. When the acknowledgement of Jesus is removed, the connection to God's abiding presence is instantly severed. The theological system suffers a total failure. To reject Jesus is to actively oppose the Father's chosen witness. This creates a total theological impasse, as the Father has declared the Son as the exclusive channel of his revelation. Loving a generic, non-specific, or purely moral version of God is a direct failure of the Johannine test. One cannot possess or demonstrate God's saving covenant love while maintaining a heterodox confession of the Christ. To resolve the cultural confusion surrounding this topic, we must apply a formal taxonomic divide between two distinct types of love. The first column is natural human love. It consists of common grace attributes like affection, loyalty, charity, and sympathy. Non-believers frequently excel in these areas. These actions are real, valid, beneficial, but operate within common human nature. The second column is divine Johannine love. This category is strictly defined as regenerative, cross-shaped, truth-bound, and tied to confession. Cultural pressure constantly attempts to drag the virtues of the left column into the divine category on the right. However, the rejection of the Son acts as a rigid barrier, preventing natural affection from being classified as saving love. The world can imitate the fruit of love, but it is impossible to possess the root of God's love while rejecting the Son of God. Preserving this taxonomic separation is vital. Conflating the two erases the offense of sin and renders the atonement unnecessary. This framework reveals the actual operational flow of love within the life of a believer. Love originates exclusively at the source, the Father. This love travels to humanity through a singular channel, the historical mechanism of the Son's sacrifice on the cross. The Holy Spirit then moves this love through the believer. When we love one another in this way, the invisible God is made visible through a network of cross-shaped grace. The believer loves others not because the recipient is worthy, but because the believer is a conduit for a flow that began at the Father and passed through the Son. Finally, this entire system is enclosed within the rigid boundary of aletheia, truth. Using love as a tool to soften or replace doctrine is a theological impossibility in John's writing. Love that is detached from Christ inevitably degrades into cultural sentiment. Conversely, truth that is detached from love hardens into lifeless harshness. True agape is the union of the two. It is cross-shaped, spirit-empowered, and inextricably bound to the confession of the truth.